How do animals, particularly humans, use food for growth, storage, and energy? This deals with the digestive system. Being a very important system in the body, it's a good idea to understand how it works. The three main organic macromolecules are called carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. They are not produced by the body, so it is essential to have them ingested. Ingestion is the act of taking in food or drink by the mouth. Today, we will be eating a burrito. This Mexican food consists of shredded chicken, lettuce, cheddar cheese, and black beans, all wrapped in a flour tortilla. It has carbohydrates from the tortilla, protein mostly from the chicken and beans, and lipids mostly from the cheese. Okay, first step, chewing. Chewing breaks up the food to create more surface area for the enzymes to break down the substrate. This starts in the mouth. Saliva secreted from the salivary glands have amylase, which is an enzyme that breaks down glucose units found in carbohydrates. Breaking down organic molecules is done by a substrate entering the active site of an enzyme, where a chemical reaction such as hydrolysis will take place. Hydrolysis is the act of adding water to a chain of molecules, breaking them apart. Let's continue. Saliva is given off to start the digestion process and moisten the food for an easier time going down the esophagus. The esophagus is lined with mucus to reduce friction from food being pushed by muscle into the stomach. Before it enters the stomach, the food goes through a valve called the sphincter, which is there to keep gastric acid in the stomach from going up the esophagus. Once in the stomach, the burrito is churned and mixed with the gastric acid and enzymes. To ensure that the stomach isn't harmed by enzymes like pepsin and renin, it is also lined with mucus as a protectant. When the food and gastric acid mixture becomes at the right consistency, it is called chyme and is then moved to the small intestine. Here, all the products from the enzyme reactions are absorbed via diffusion and sometimes passive transport as nutrients into the blood. This not-so-small intestine is actually on average 7 meters in length and is folded and scrunched up together to fit as much absorption as possible into the space it resides. In addition to the large space, it is lined with millions of little tag thingies called villi, and on each villi there are hundreds of microvilli, which makes for even more absorption. The small intestine is made specifically for what it does. After the chyme is stripped of most of its nutrients, it moves into the large intestine where little absorption happens. This little victory lap is done to take the water out of chyme and form it into waste. Great, but what happens to the nutrients in the blood? It goes through circulation to places that need it most. Glucose units are used in various things. Some are brought to the muscle cells and are rebuilt by dehydration synthesis and enzymes as glycogen. Some are brought to liver, stored as fat, or used in energy in cells. For glucose to enter a cell, it needs the hormone insulin to be released, which is done when glucose is ingested. When glucose actually enters the cell, cellular respiration starts, and it goes through a process called glycolysis, which turns into pyruvate, then into acetyl-CoA to enter mitochondria. In the mitochondria, it goes through a long process where in the end has made ATP, the energy source for humans, and heat. As for amino acids in circulation, they are brought to bones, muscle, skin, and hair tissues because protein is one of the main building blocks for all of those things. It is also used in the pancreas where enzymes, which are also proteins, are made. Proteins are stored as fat, although they aren't commonly stored, so it is important to keep them in your system. Fatty acids and glycerol and lipids and phosphorus are used to make cell membranes, hence phospholipids. They are also stored as fat and have twice as much energy per gram than that of carbohydrates. Okay, now the burrito is correctly distributed into our body. What about other food? To find out if a certain food has carbohydrates, proteins, or lipids, a series of tests can be run. For lipids, putting the food on a paper bag and then checking for an oil stain works fine. For proteins, there is the Biuret test. This is made of sodium hydroxide and copper sulfate, and if it turns from blue to purple, there are proteins present. As for carbohydrates, there are the Lewis solution, which is an iodine solution that turns dark blue when it detects starch. It is important to understand the digestive system so that you understand the importance of what you put into your body. This is the entire flow of matter and energy in organisms and ecosystems. What shall we eat next?